Councillor Rain.
Thank you. Are there any other members? Do any other members know of any other apologies for absence? I'll take that as a no. Thank you. Turning to item 2, declarations of interest. Although there are no decisions to be made this evening, Monitoring Officer Advice has confirmed that members who are also North Yorkshire County Council members must ensure that they partake in this meeting in the best interests of this council and exercise their judgment in the public interest. This will be taken as declared unless any members who wish to whom this applies have anything further to add. Do any members have any additional interest to declare under the Members' Code of Conduct?
No raised hands, Chair.
No raised hands, thank you. Then we'll go on to item 3, the business of the evening, questions on requisition. The questions have been circulated with agenda papers and the Chief Executive has provided written responses ahead of the meeting. Can I confirm that those written responses have been sent and received? Because I haven't received them yet. I've only just arrived home. You have. Thank you, Councillor Andrews.
I haven't received them, Chair.
You haven't?
I haven't, Chair.
Oh, you haven't. Can I ask the Chief Executive have the written responses been circulated?
Yes, they have, Chair. I will resend them now to everybody just to make sure that they've gone through.
Thank you. Well, I wonder if we would just take a minute just to, when they have been sent, just to reach them.
Michael, can I throw in a thought to this?
You can, John.
I arrived back in from work after 6 o'clock, was told they exist. There was no way I can digest however much there is in an hour before we come to the meeting. So some of its content and the ensuing bits may flow into future meetings.
Yeah. Because
I'm not going to pass judgment on any documents I've seen on that length of notice. That said, are they from the Chief Executive and are they from the leader as well, as I understand?
I'm actually logging into my council laptop, council iPad as I speak. The email is through executive support from the Chief Executive. But in any event, the answers will come directly from the leader.
And can I thank the Chief Executive and or the leader for whoever's sent what so far, but just express a little touch of disappointment that it's come so late when some of it's been there since July. Maybe it's taken the transparency that number of months to get through.
I will direct it in that direction. You will understand that there is a lot happening at the moment, Councillor Clark. We are as a council endeavouring to do all sorts of things all at the same time with a limited number of staff.
I understand that, Chair, and that's why I said thank you. That's why I said thank you for them.
You did.
It does mean that our considered response, anybody's considered response, is not going to come seriously tonight.
Well, you have plenty of questions that you have already proposed for this evening, and you will get answers on those. A lot of information you may wish to glean between now and Thursday.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Chair.
Yeah, right. I think we will therefore kick off. There are for members.
Chair, I have my hand up.
We are Councillor Paul Andrews.
Yeah, just to say, Chair, I did check my emails this afternoon. I've now just checked them again, and I see that I have actually got these papers, and I really am surprised that they've come so late. And I appreciate that there's a big problem as far as staffing is concerned, but it's a bit. It really does put us at some disadvantage. It puts members at a disadvantage, I feel.
That's taken. I think we will try and press on with the meeting as best we can. Councillor Clark, please put your first question to the leader.
Thank you, Chair. You asked us to look at as to how the best way of handling this would be, and that rather than all 5 of us asking the same question 5 times, we've split the questions among ourselves, but any one of us may be asking supplementaries. So
there will be one supplementary per question. If as we spoke on this, I'm very happy for you to deal out the questions amongst your group, amongst the people who have signed.
Chair, there's 5 members. 5 members have put these questions in.
Yep.
And it depends. There will be other supplementaries other than the person who reads out the question.
There will be one supplementary per question.
Chair, we could do it the other way round. That each one of the 5 of us reads the question and then asks for supplementary, but that would take longer.
I don't think. Well, we did discuss this, Councillor Clark. That I
understood that, and I did say to you.
If you would just let me finish. We did discuss this, and I'm very happy that each member of the Liberal Party ask a question, but there are 11 questions which will be asked by one or other of your group. The Leader of Council will answer the question as best he can, and the Liberal group, on each question will be permitted one supplementary question, which I'm going to, as we come to it, I will limit in time to get the meeting going.
Are you limiting it? Sorry, Chair, I didn't hear you. Are you limiting it to one question per member of the Liberal group?
Not at all. No, you can. The 11 questions can be asked by whoever has signed the requisition.
Mm-hmm.
That saves your breath, Councillor Clark. Whether you want to go number 1 and every other 5th question.
Chair, I'm suggesting that if you leave supplementaries that are down to when 5 people have requested the answers to these questions to one person, then all you are going to do is get the same questions asked again so the other person can ask the supplementary.
Well, the supplementary
and between now and early December, I really don't think we should be having another meeting to get this information out. Now that we're all here and we've got it.
Any question, any supplementary question that can't be answered this evening, you'll get responses between now and Thursday. Every member will have a chance on Thursday evening to put whatever questions they like to the Leader. What I don't know if I've misunderstood the question, but what I'm not going to allow is 5 supplementary questions for every one of these 11 questions on the requisition.
I'm not suggesting that.
You're not. It's my misunderstanding. I apologise.
There will be more than one on some of them.
Let's see how we go, shall we?
Okay, I'm happy to see how we go. Sure.
Let's see how we go. But if it starts dragging on and the questions aren't questions but are statements of whatever form they might take, which has happened in the past, I will draw a close to it. But let's see how we go, shall we? Your first question, Councillor Clark.
Clyde Moss is going to ask this one.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you better turn it up a bit. It's a bit faint, Clive.
Okay. Bear with me. Sorry. Right, good evening. Thank you very much for everybody who's joined us this evening. I really appreciate it. Right, question 1. Who made the decision that the mega council was not appropriate for the people of Ryedale, and on what evidence?
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Councillor Wass, for your question. In anticipation of the government's letter inviting proposals to reorganise, North Yorkshire's 7 district and borough councils jointly commissioned KPMG to assess a range of options in an objective and fair way. The case for change concluded that the East and West model performed more strongly than any other, with the so-called mega council option failing in terms of service delivery, democratic accountability, and financial sustainability. Full details of the analysis can be found in the case for change document. A decision by Ryedale District Council members on whether or not to support the submission of the East and West model included in the case for change will take place at this week's extraordinary meeting of full council. Supporting submission of East and West to government does not necessarily equate to support for this proposal or rejection of any other. Only that this council believes that East and West should be submitted to government for consideration. While I am a supporter of unitary local government in principle, I remain totally opposed to reorganisation at this uncertain and worrying time for our residents. This view is shared by the other 6 district and borough leaders. Sadly, the County Council appears determined to submit its mega council proposal on Wednesday. If that happens, I feel this council has no option but to respond by submitting the East and West proposal to the Secretary of State. This will allow him to consider 2 proposals, each with their respective strengths and weaknesses, before making any decision. Ultimately, it is his decision, but we can help influence and shape the outcome in the best interests of Ryedale residents.
Councillor Wass, do you have a supplementary to that question?
Yes, please. Yeah, thanks for that, Keane. Where does it actually mention, though, in the report, the words mega council? I've looked through the report and I can't see where that phrase is used or has been commissioned in its wording. And really, in terms of the options we've got for an audit, which is considered by North Yorkshire and York as a unitary, who's it going to benefit at the end of the day? And it's a weighted phrase, if you like, the words mega council, which are making or loading us to think in a certain way. So I just want to know where that phrase has come from, because, as I say, it's not mentioned in any of the reports.
Thank you, Councillor Wass, for your supplementary question. I think the simple answer very much is 620,000 people, 8,000 square kilometres. This would be the biggest local authority ever created in England. And if this isn't a mega council, then there is no mega council anywhere else in the country. This would be something unlike local government that exists anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, I appreciate, in terms of the geographical size, Ryedale is the biggest of all 7 areas in terms of hectares, probably the least populated. But, why is that phrase mega council come about? Because it is loaded in terms of, looking at the dimensions of what we've got and the splits and the options we've got. There's a fair number. There's over 10. All in all, and yet we're plumbing for one. But this phrase has come up, and if I was looking at this as an outsider, I'd be thinking, is that a term that is there for a specific reason to make me think, no, we need to go with a certain option? But I just, as I say, it's not been used anywhere, and we've commissioned it. So I don't know, where is this your phrase, or is this a phrase from somewhere else? But it's not in the report.
Mr. Chairman, I think I've answered the supplementary question there.
I think you've got the message over, Councillor Wass, that it's the word mega, which is subjective, unless, of course, you're a mathematician, in which case it's a million odd. But I think you've got the point over. Can we move on? Would that be all right, Councillor Wass?
Thank you.
The next question is question 2 by the next questioner from the Liberal group.
Councillor Brackstone, please.
Hello, good evening, everybody. So question 2, in the above decision, who had the competency to decide on Little One, children and young people services?
Thank you, Councillor Braxton, for your question. My answer is that Ryedale District Council has not yet made a decision. However, in preparing the case for change, KPMG utilised its experts in these fields to contribute to the overall findings of the study. Further details of the team members' experience can be found in 4.7 of the Chief Executive's briefing note, which has been circulated to all members via email. And this is the answer to the further subsections of this question in terms of children's services, health and adult services, public health and education.
Okay, thank you for that. Unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of time to have a look at the supplementary information. I do have a supplementary question, however. According to the report, North Yorkshire County Council is outstanding in its children and young people services, yet York Council needs improvement. So on this basis, why have we decided to basically cut the North Yorkshire children and young people services in half? Why not just carry on with the North Yorkshire County Council services being outstanding on its own?
Thank you, Councillor Braxton, for your question. A key part of the study which KPMG have done is to look at all options and to look at the whole footprint. And that means not just North Yorkshire, but City of York as well. And the purpose of the study has been to look at how best to deliver services to all 800,000 residents across that footprint. And that means that in certain areas, North Yorkshire has best practice, examples of strength. In others, it's weaker. In City of York, there's examples of strength in some areas, but in other areas of delivery, they are weaker. The advantage, I think, of the approach that KPMG have taken is that the whole patch has been looked at and what can benefit all residents across that geography, meaning that we can share best practice, we can share expertise to ensure that everybody has access, not just to good services, not just to mediocre services, but really excellent, truly excellent services into the future. And that includes children's services.
Can I pop a supplementary in there, Chair? Where does it say...
Mr. Chairman, sorry to cut across Councillor Clark, but there are, I think, in total 14 different questions, some of which have subsections. And I think, to be fair, there have now been supplementaries on each of these. And I think to have supplementaries from every single member who signed the requisition is clearly not really workable for the meeting. I am happy to answer any questions outside of this forum that people may have after reading the information that's been sent by the Chief Executive, but I would just like to appeal for a degree of fairness in that I have taken a great degree of time to prepare answers to the questions in the requisition. So I would just like to appeal to you, Mr. Chairman, that we can get through those questions in a reasonable time frame.
Chair, I don't know. None of the members of the Liberal group are asking these questions simply because we want the answers. We are asking these questions because the public deserve to know them, the answers to them.
Chair, this is David Kitson. Sorry to interject. I can see you talking and you're on mute. So just to let you know.
Who's on mute?
The chair, Councillor Cleary.
Sorry, you got knocked off. Councillor Clark, if you do have a question, ask it now. If it is not relevant or it's going to be asked later, I will say so. But let's just see how we go. Councillor Lunkett, I do hear what you say about questions, but already the interjection has delayed the proceedings more than the question might have. Councillor Clark, if you have a brief supplementary on that question, please ask it now.
Is there not a sensible philosophy that if it ain't broken, don't fix it? And children and young people's services, health and adult services in North Yorkshire are better or as good as anything in York. Where does it say in the KPMG report that it would be a good idea to break those up? Because I can't see it. Can you tell me where it is?
I think, as Councillor Braxton has already stated in her original supplementary question, is that there are weaknesses in the City of York's children's services. And the premise of the work by KPMG has been to deliver services across all of that footprint, York and North Yorkshire. And clearly, KPMG, in their report, believe very strongly that the creation of 2 new councils is the best way of delivering children's services to all 800,000 residents of York and North Yorkshire.
I'm sorry, Chair, but that doesn't answer where does it say that in the report that this will produce better services. Leave it.
Councillor Duncan,
silence will do me.
If Councillor Duncan can point to the actual item in the report, then he can do so, and then we'll move on to little 2. Little 2, little 3 and little 4, I suspect, are going to be very similar answers, but you can ask them as they come.
I think I've answered that question, Mr. Chairman. The report by KPMG is very extensive, running to more than 100 pages. I am happy to discuss with Councillor Clark the contents of the report in more detail outside of this meeting, but clearly I can't pinpoint precise pages out of those more than 100 pages at this point in time.
Thank you. The next question, question 2, little 2.
Thank you. It's Councillor Joy Andrews. In the above decision, who has relied on health and adult services?
Mr. Chairman, my answer stands to the original question from Councillor Brackstone on children's services.
Would it also stand on public health and education, because they do seem to be linked together? Would that be fair to say, Councillor Duncan?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. I thought I'd made that clear in my original response to Councillor Brackstone's question.
That's fine. In which case, does Councillor Joy Andrews, have a supplementary that might require further information?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Does Councillor Duncan have any clue where it says about public health being better under these arrangements rather than the mega council?
Mr. Chairman, there is a question, I believe, that's following in the agenda papers about public health in particular, and I will be able to provide more information at that point in time when the question comes to me.
Okay.
Thank you. Which leads us on to question 3, which will be asked by.
I think that's down to me, Chair.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. How does the breaking up of North Yorkshire's Public Health Department help in the current campaign against COVID-19?
Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. As I've already stated, I remain totally opposed to reorganisation at this uncertain and worrying time when the focus of all authorities should be responding to COVID-19 and supporting residents in need of help as we enter a second nationwide lockdown. My hope is that the County Council decides ultimately not to submit the Mega Council proposal on Wednesday. But if it is submitted, I feel this council is left with no option but to respond by submitting the East and West proposal. If the County Council does submit its proposal, it will be that authority which is ultimately responsible for the consequences of triggering reorganisation at this critically important and critically sensitive time. While I am gravely concerned about the short-term implications of the reorganisation process and the potential disruption and distraction that this will cause, there is potential in the longer term, I believe, to strengthen the response to public health emergencies such as COVID-19 by building on current excellence, not just in North Yorkshire, but in the City of York too. The East and West model has potential to accelerate partnership working and pull expertise to help more effectively manage emergencies into the future. Instead of breaking up departments, as Councillor Clark calls it, we have a chance to promote much closer working than ever before.
Hello? Has the chair gone mute again?
Chairman, are you on mute?
It slips in and out. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Councillor Clark, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we're going to break something up and not know what we're putting in its place, when what we've got for public health appears to be working incredibly well. Can you give us the logic behind doing that?
Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. As I think I've made very clear, I am opposed to reorganisation at this time when we are facing up to the COVID-19 emergency situation. As I've also made very clear, we are not breaking up services. Actually, there is an opportunity here to have closer working, joint working, partnership working than ever before across North Yorkshire and York by using the expertise which we have across both public health departments. That is not breaking up services, that is actually making them stronger by working together, more united into the future.
I'm sorry, Chair, that doesn't answer my question.
Mr. Chairman.
We have one North Yorkshire Public Health Department that covers all the 7 district boroughs in North Yorkshire. And any proposal, other than the North Yorkshire one, which we haven't looked at yet, would be breaking up the Public Health Department. Fact.
Mr. Chairman, I think I've answered the question, Mr. Chairman, and I would just like to request as well, Mr. Chairman, that the etiquette for full council meetings, as laid out in the Constitution, should not go out the window just because we're holding this meeting virtually. People are entitled to ask a question and they're entitled to ask a supplementary. And I think I'm showing goodwill in trying to answer the questions to the best of my ability. But to have a flurry of questions coming before me is not in line with the procedures that are laid out in the Constitution.
Thank you. I've taken that note. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. However, it's been answered, Councillor Clark, the leader has given you an answer that he is prepared to give you. The judgment as to what that answer to be should be to the members present and anybody else watching. We will therefore move on to question 4. Whose turn is it to ask question 4?
That, unfortunately, is me again, Chair. Can we have copies of the tendering process? Now, I don't know whether I've received that today or not. Have we received it?
Councillor Duncan, has that information been sent out with the others?
That's a mechanical question, isn't it?
Is it? Well, I think it was part of the question, actually. Can we have a copy of the tendering
can we have a copy? But I wouldn't be asking for one if I have one, Chair, but I don't know if I have one.
Well, that is why I'm asking Councillor Duncan whether it's been sent out or not in the last few hours.
In answer to Councillor Clark's question, thank you, Councillor Clark. The appointment of KPMG was handled on behalf of the 7 district and borough councils by Scarborough Borough Council. Given the short time frame involved, SBC used a procurement framework to appoint KPMG. Further details of the tendering process are available in 4.3 of the Chief Executive's briefing note, which has been circulated to all members by email.
So the answer to my question is yes. How many organisations bid?
Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. Question 5. Please see the question that I've just given to question 4, that KPMG was selected by Scarborough Borough Council from a procurement framework.
I think, in fact, we're still on question 4, in terms of how many organisations bid.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman and Councillor Clark, question 5 is how many organisations bid. That is question 5 on the agenda papers, and that's the question that I've just answered.
Well, it's 4(1) on my copy.
No, it's 4(1) on my copy as well. Can somebody send Councillor Duncan a copy of the questions again? Would it help if we had a 2-minute break to allow that to happen?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking now at the agenda, and I do apologise, but I have just answered the question that is 4(1) of how many organisations bid.
Right, and how many was that?
The answer is in the Chief Executive's briefing note that KPMG was selected by Scarborough Borough Council from the procurement framework.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. I understand that. And then
that doesn't tell us how many organisations bid, Chair.
Well, I think my understanding, well, I won't answer the question. Maybe if you could read the briefing note and come back as to why well, I'm not going to answer that question because it's not in the chairman's. I have answered questions of people. And
I don't know the answer as of now.
Mr. Chairman, what I'm saying to Councillor Clark and to all members of the council is the Chief Executive has provided comprehensive information about the process through which KPMG was appointed. It was not an open procurement process. It was from a procurement framework that is used by Scarborough Borough Council.
By who? I'll have two supplementaries now, Chair.
Well, I think we've moved on to little two.
Scarborough, okay, I'll work it into one, as I said in the thing. Scarborough Borough Council appears to have now got into the bidding process on our behalf, or on the procurement process on our behalf. Why was KPMG chosen?
Mr. Chairman, I think I've answered the question in that...
That's the supplementary.
The consultancy appointment was handled by Scarborough Borough Council on behalf of the 7 district and borough councils in North Yorkshire. They are the accountable organisation that formally commissioned them on our behalf, and they used a procurement framework in which to do that.
Yeah.
Councillor Clark, I think I'm not being out of order here. I have occasionally answered questions off my own bat in order to help things go, but I have received advice that no organisation bid as such. It's a direct instruction under a framework agreement. The framework is a national framework open to any council. Does that help your reasoning?
It does help me. It's probably what I suspected. It still doesn't answer my question as to why KPMG was chosen, but maybe that's in the briefing that none of us have had time to read yet.
Can I just ask a supplementary as well here, Chair, please?
I think we've answered the question about the tendering. We're moving on to 4.2.
Yeah, can I just ask another supplementary here, a more general question, in the fact that we're getting answers that these answers are in variously 4.7, 4.3 of briefing notes, but are these answers available to members of the public? Because these aren't just questions for councillors. This should be an open forum for members of the public to listen to. Now, will they be able to access?
I think if you like, once you've had a chance to read the briefing note, you can ask that question of the leader and chief executive. The questions on notice that we've got here are to be answered this evening. You do have time between now and Thursday for other information in respect of confidentiality of the information that's been forwarded. Can we have question 4, little 2, please?
I'm at a loss, Chair. It says here in front of me, 4 little 2, what was their expertise? Now, we're told nothing about their expertise because we don't even know why KPMG was chosen. So that question becomes meaningless unless we go along to Scarborough Council and ask that question of them, because they clearly know and we don't. So I withdraw that question.
Right, we'll go on to question 5 then. Whose turn is it for question 5?
Clive Wassers.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, the question on the expertise in CHIPS has public health and education.
Hang on, Chair, I haven't asked a question. I've withdrawn it.
Yeah,
okay.
We're going to move on to question 5. I mean, if anybody's interested on the expertise of KPMG...
Scarborough.
Well, you can ask Scarborough, but KPMG is a public body. You can ask them. But
we're
moving on to
KPMG was
question 5.
chosen by Scarborough, we've been told, Chair, which is why I've withdrawn the question.
It's your turn to ask question 5.
Thank you, Chair. Can we please have a copy of the terms of references and timescales, including the deadlines given to KPMG?
Thank you, Councillor Wass, for your question. A copy of this is included in the Chief Executive's briefing note that's been circulated to all members via email.
Will that do, or do you need a supplementary on that, Councillor Wass?
Yeah, if I can continue, please. Yeah, the supplementary. I'm just a bit perturbed that we're getting everything at the last minute. And as part of the tendering process, whether or not it's over 25,000, collectively it is. And there is a 4-week window in terms of which members should have been alerted to what was going on in terms of this process. It's taxpayers' money that's being used. And at the end of the day, really, to get all this information at the last minute, where we haven't had a chance to read anything to do with this, if that's been included in the Chief Executive's mails today, I don't know. But it's not really adequate to give us an informed and professional opinion where we can reflect and maybe not need to ask certain questions like this.
I think I take your point. On the other hand, the information given will be in the same vein as any of the answers to the questions on the requisition, which gives you plenty of, or if not plenty, gives you time between now and Thursday. I do appreciate that it has come late before this evening's meeting, but I think you should treat the information in the briefing notes in the same way that you can treat the questions or the answers given by the leader in respect of the 11 questions in the requisition.
Chair, can I just continue there? Sorry to interrupt. Who then would pull the strings in terms of the deadlines for the bidding then?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there was a supplementary question there from Councillor Ross, which I am happy to answer if you're happy for me to do so. You mentioned there, Councillor Ross, about information. There was a very comprehensive briefing held by the Chief Executive on the 23rd of July, which was discussing the procurement process and the appointment of KPMG. Unfortunately, no representative of the Liberal group, I believe, was present for that briefing, where lots of the questions which you are now asking a few days before the full council meeting, where we're going to make the most important decision probably this council has ever made, were answered. They were answered at that briefing session. Also, as I hope you can imagine, today is Monday and we are meeting again on Thursday. So there is actually several days in which all members of the council, yourself included, are able to look at this information. And I would like to extend to all members of the council, yourself included, Councillor Wass, that anybody who has any questions that they wish to ask and that they need clarity on, I'm happy to answer those questions if members contact me. I haven't had any contact so far from the Liberal group outside of this meeting forum, but I am happy, any member of the council, to ask me questions, and I will endeavour to do all that I can to answer them. And I also know that the Chief Executive is available and willing to share all information with members to help them make any decision that they need to on Thursday at the extraordinary meeting.
Chair, a point of personal explanation here. Why on earth, when we are asking for this information to be in the public domain, so that the public can see it, are we being told, well, it was discussed privately, but you didn't want to discuss it with us privately? This information should be out in the public domain, not covered up by, if you want to talk to me privately, I might tell you about it. That's totally unacceptable, Chair. And the point in these questions, and the point in this meeting, and the point in us all spending this evening, and I'm very grateful to everybody who is there, is so the answers to these questions can be out in the public domain.
Councillor Clark, I've got your message.
They were in a private briefing.
Clark, I've got your message. I'll ask the leader if there are any points of view, if he has an opinion as to how much of this information really should remain confidential and when it should be proper that it becomes public, if you've got a view on that.
All I would say, Mr. Chairman, is I think I have adequately answered the question. However, what I will say is it is always my view that as much information that can be disclosed publicly and discussed publicly, that does enter the public domain. That is always my view. However, clearly, lots of this information is held by the Chief Executive, who I understand has sought legal advice on publication. And I would advise members that if they want information within the briefing note to be shared, some of which has been marked as confidential, that they have that discussion with the Chief Executive and our legal team outside of this formal meeting, ahead of Thursday's meeting, to discuss what can and can't be published in the public domain. It's not for me to decide that, but I, as a general principle, always believe in openness and transparency and sharing information, as much information as we can.
Councillor Clark, if I might, as chairman, suggest that I agree with what Councillor Duncan has just said. I agree with the thrust of your question. I will ask after this meeting the leader if we can approach the Chief Executive to determine that and release as much information as is proper. Would you be happy with my suggestion to do that?
I would be happy, Chair, if we had a conference call and decided on all of it. I don't know when we're going to do it, simply because it's going to take me a length of time to read this lot.
Well, I think,
Chair, we have had since July for some of this not to be discussed in private, and I agree totally with your thrust The disappointment is that we're now discussing it in November when it should have been discussed in July publicly. So, yes, whatever you can do to release as much as you can would be helpful.
The Leader of the Council and I will discuss the matter with the Chief Executive, and we will make our best endeavours. I mean, there could well be entirely proper reasons for elements of this information to remain confidential, but I will try and ascertain that and make sure that what is available, what should be available publicly, is made available publicly. If we can move on, please, to question 6.
Yeah, I have a point of order, which I have had my hand up for some time.
Have you? Councillor Andrews, what rule are we breaking that you need a point of order?
The rule says if we're given an answer which refers to a particular document or a particular paragraph of a document, we actually are told which page and on which paragraph we're referring to. Because what the answer that was given by Councillor Duncan was, can we please have a copy of the terms of reference? And he said, yes, they're in the papers, but it would be helpful if in answering those questions, Councillor Duncan could actually give the reference, i.e. The page number and the paragraph number, so that we can all look through our papers and follow the discussion and check what's going on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think that's a helpful note. I don't think it's in the Constitution that any answer should quote chapter and verse to something that's only just come out, would it?
But Chair, could the leader please tell us which page he's talking to when he says copy of the terms of reference is included in the papers that the leader has sent out?
Mr. Chairman, in all of my answers, and Councillor Andrews, in all of my answers, I am referring to specific paragraphs in all cases. But the only exceptions to that is where there is a document in the appendix. So if I do not refer to a particular paragraph, it's because it's in an appendix. And in this case, it's on page 10 in Appendix 1, the consultant's brief.
Really? Thank you. We'll move on to question 6. Question 6.
Thank you. Can we please have copies of communications with NYCC that enabled our leader to decide that our council would not support the NYCC proposals?
Thank you, Councillor Andrews, for your question. No decision has been taken for or by this council. The council's position will be determined this Thursday at the extraordinary meeting. However, the objective analysis contained within the case for change supports my personal view that the North Yorkshire and York model is not the optimal solution for local government in our county. I continue to believe that it would be wrong to subsume Ryedale into the largest council in England with a population rivalled only by Birmingham and Leeds. I believe this proposal is wrong for our staff, for our businesses and for our residents. Covering 8,000 square kilometres and stretching almost coast to coast, I fear this authority will be too large to be effective and too remote to represent our residents. My hope is that we can keep local government local in our county by backing and submitting an alternative to government.
I think I just got that before Councillor Duncan disappeared into Dalekry. Did everybody else hear that, or would he? Can we move on to a supplementary, Councillor Andrews?
Yes. Have we got the communications between the leader or Ryedale and North Yorkshire? Are there any communications?
Councillor Andrews, the KPMG met with the Chief Executive of the County Council, and I was going to refer to this in the answer to the next question, and held discussions with them. Clearly, they didn't wish to be part of the piece of work. Discussions were also held with the City of York Council, which I will also refer to in a subsequent question, and they also did not wish to be part of the KPMG piece of work. They've done their own piece of work, as we know, which has now been published into the public domain.
I have a supplementary, Chair.
Councillor Clark.
If North Yorkshire, I'm going to have to do your work for you, Leader. If North Yorkshire had put in local delivery units, like the KPMG report is suggesting, then that would have delivered, would it not, a similar picture. However, KPMG is not recommending local delivery units so that Ryedale and local services for local people could be decided by local councils. It's not. So would not North Yorkshire have been able to have done that? And did you suggest that as an amendment to North Yorkshire?
Mr. Chairman, I don't wish to avert the question, but I also don't wish people to get confused, because the next question is about the amendments to the NYCC bid, which I am happy to answer at the appropriate point in time. But I suppose for the moment, all I would say is NYCC are responsible for their bid. I've had no engagement from them and no contact.
I'm sorry, Chair, I think I maybe didn't express my supplementary clearly. The KPMG report refers to local delivery units, but then doesn't put any local delivery units into its report. How does that make it local?
There is, Councillor Clark, as you've referenced, in the appendix, a proposal which does, I think, refer to almost a status quo situation with the district and the borough councils as local delivery units. Is that what you are referring to?
I'm saying it refers in there when it's talking about you've got me thinking mega councils now. When you've got combined authorities, then you would need to or could have local delivery units. But North Yorkshire had for many decades a local delivery unit, which meant that Ryedale Area Committee was in a position to decide Ryedale area decisions. This is not in the KPMG report. So in your east-west solution, there is no local delivery units. Why not?
The KPMG report is in effect an options appraisal of 10 different options to look at the best geography for structuring local services. Clearly, between the East and West model and the North Yorkshire and York model being proposed by the County Council, both of those new models have authorities within them which are significantly bigger than the existing boroughs and districts. And I think there is an acceptance that both of those are going to have some form of area-based committees to make decisions such as planning and licensing. That I believe, there is reference, Councillor Clark, within the proposal by KPMG, within the case for change, to a model for delivery and decisions on a local basis. That is further work which needs to be elaborated upon on this model that's being proposed by KPMG. But in all of these circumstances and all of the proposals, there is going to have to be some form of area-based committees to be able to make those decisions.
I'm sorry, Chair, but with respect, it doesn't actually say that.
I think there are questions that will not be answered to your satisfaction, but that's the answer that's been given, Councillor Clark.
I accept the answer that has been given, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And we can therefore move on to question 7. Whose turn is question 7?
I've got Councillor Braxton down.
Thank you, Chair. Question 7, little 1. Has the North Yorkshire County Council proposal been scrutinised? By whom and when?
Thank you, Councillor Braxton. Can I just check, in case I've not missed it, was there a question about amendments to the NYCC bid? Because that's the question that I had next on the agenda paper.
I think it was sort of answered in a sideways way in terms of the overall look at the county council bid, and the fact that it's the county council's bid and not ours. But
yeah, I'm happy, Mr. Chairman, to give some details on that, and that is the NYCC has determined the content of its own proposal. And while KPMG did meet with the Chief Executive of the County Council to request information in preparing its case for change, the County Council at no point consulted Ryedale District Council on its proposal, nor was its proposal shared in whole or in part with this council prior to publication of the final document to the wider public on October the 26th. Any amendments to the County Council proposal would be a matter for county councillors, and I do admit that I am a county councillor, but I haven't been involved in this piece of work. Questions about the preparation of their proposal would need to be answered by NYCC directly. It's also worth pointing out again that KPMG included in its report an assessment of the North Yorkshire and York proposal in the case for change. The details of their findings, including its significant shortcomings, are in the study that has been provided to members to inform the debate that will take place at the extraordinary meeting on Thursday.
Councillor Joy Andrews, you asked the substantial question. Do you have a supplementary to that?
No, thank you.
Right. Councillor Braxton, I think it's probably wise if you would repeat your question 7(1), please.
Sorry, Chair. To repeat, has the North Yorkshire County Council proposal been scrutinised, by whom and when?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I believe I've answered the question in saying that the County Council proposal is the County Council's proposal. The content of that has been determined by the County Council. The scrutiny of that and amendments to it must be determined by the County Council. That is not a piece of work that the District Council has been involved in. The scrutiny of that is down to the County Council.
Thank you. And I think leading on, therefore, there has been no analysis, so we have to move on to question 8.
Chair,
question 8, please.
Just a quick line, Chair, there, please. Right. As the County Council and the KPMG proposals all affect the people of Ryedale, why are we not looking at the North Yorkshire proposals to see what we like and what we don't like, rather than have just the it's a mega council and we don't like it approach?
Mr. Chairman, the County Council's business case is available in the public domain via the County Council website. It's free for anybody to look at, including Councillor Clark. However, that is not a piece of work that we have been involved with as a district council. It doesn't belong to us. It's not part of part of the work that we have done. We commissioned KPMG to give an objective assessment of all of the options so that members could be informed in case the day came where we had to make a decision about whether to submit a business case or not. The County Council's proposal has been, we want one single unitary for North Yorkshire, and we're going to prepare a business case that gives details of one unitary for North Yorkshire. Our approach of the district and borough council leaders was very much, we don't have a proposal, we don't have a model, we have no preconceived idea, but we want to do an appraisal of all of the options, including a single county unitary for North Yorkshire, to see which option is the best one and which option is going to deliver best for local people. They have produced on our behalf a document that is attached to the extraordinary meeting agenda papers for us to discuss on Thursday. Inside that document is a discussion and analysis of the issues relating to the County Council proposal. It's there for us to debate and discuss on Thursday.
Thank you, Chair.
Question 8. Whose turn for question 8, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I presume we're going to get very similar answers here, as it appears that we don't want to compare what Councillor Duncan's putting forward with what the North Yorkshire's been put forward. But anyway, so what consultations have taken place with City of York Council, and have we got their views on the Ryedale District Council, etc. proposals?
Thank you, Councillor Potter, for your question. The KPMG team did meet with the interim chief executive of City of York Council on August the 12th. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss City of York Council's position on local government reorganisation, as well as to request information to inform the options appraisal. Unfortunately, no information was forthcoming from City of York Council. The leader of Scarborough Council discussed the KPMG work with the leader of City of York Council on August the 20th, and also the Chief Executive of Ryedale District Council met with the Chief Operating Officer of City of York Council today, November the 2nd. What I can tell you is the City of York Council resolved at a full council meeting on October the 29th to submit a bid to the government to remain as a unitary on its current footprint. And not only that, they also decided to join a strategic partnership with North Yorkshire County Council. This would leave York, in the words of the Government Minister Simon Clark, who got the ball rolling on this process, as a unitary of suboptimal size. And I think it is important just to make very clear that the government has given criteria, which we must follow. And that criteria says that unitary authority should be between 300 and 600,000 people. The County Council proposal, supported by City of York, is to create one authority which is greater than the upper limit of 600,000, and to create another authority which is 100,000 people smaller than the lower limit. The East and West proposal, out of the two, is the only proposal that complies with the government criteria. It's worth pointing out as well that the government may, should it so wish, decide to accept a proposal for local government reform if one or more of the authorities impacted do not support it. Consent is not required. And clearly, if it was, then no change will be possible in York and North Yorkshire at this time, because it is highly unlikely that there is going to be a single proposal that all 9 authorities are going to be happy with. I'd like to hope that there was, but I really don't think that there's going to be. It is, however, worth noting that the majority of council leaders in York and North Yorkshire, 7 out of the 9, support the East and West model. That is the model that has the greatest consensus amongst the 9 local authorities.
Leaders.
Councillor Potter. Councillor Potter, have you a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. It's interesting to hear that consent is not required, because it would appear that City of York Council don't particularly want to talk to us about setting up an East-West setup. So how can we draw any meaningful proposals with City of York Council if we've not had any discussions with them about setting up an East-West?
Thank you, Councillor Potter, for your question. I don't know if I've been clear, but we tried to have constructive conversations with City of York Council, who basically were not prepared to do that. We asked for information, and we were told basically use the information that's in the public domain. There has not been a constructive dialogue with City of York Council. That's unfortunate, but there's nothing we can do about that. And as I've stated very clearly, City of York Council wish to remain as they are, and I believe the only reason for that, not to have looked at any alternatives, is purely self-interest, because there are issues that every council has. Services which could be delivered better, new ways of working that could be brought in, but City of York Council has flatly and robustly refused to look at any proposal other than keeping City of York Council on its current footprint. I think that's a grave mistake. I don't think that provides best value to the taxpayer and to the residents of York, who I think can be really advantaged by the East and West proposal, as well as residents of North Yorkshire. But we have tried. Unfortunately, we have failed to engage with City of York Council. But we really did try, but unfortunately that wasn't possible.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. But it's interesting particularly because the government have said they will not impose these changes, and yet City of York Council have no intention of working with us. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Question 9, please.
Chair, there's a little bit missing from that. Does it mean where it's copies, please? Does that mean there was no written communication with them?
I'm happy to clarify that, Mr. Chairman, in that I've not been provided with any written minutes of communication, written minutes of meetings or any written communications which I'm able to share at this point in time. They may exist, but I haven't seen them. I don't have access to them.
So you, as our leader, haven't written to York Council?
Mr. Chairman, I haven't written directly to City of York Council, but KPMG, who are acting on our behalf in compiling an objective and independent appraisal of all the options, did endeavour to engage with City of York Council, but were unable to do so.
Thank you. Question 9 then. Whose turn for question 9?
I think that's unfortunately me again, Chair. Who took the decision to spend 25,000 on KPMG? And how much was committed before the tendering took place?
Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. Again, this is one that you would have had the answers to if you'd have attended the briefing back in July. But I am happy.
No, Chair. No, I'm not. I'm not being told that if I'd attended the briefing. The public do not know the answer. The public do not know the answer to this question.
The leader is endeavouring to answer.
Chair, I'm not. It's the fourth or fifth time he said I would have had the answer. The public want to know.
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to give an answer.
If you allow the leader to give the answer to your question, he'll endeavour to do so. Councillor Duncan.
He's not answering it by accusing. He's not answering it by saying that if we had attended a private meeting, we would have known. The public would not have known if we'd attended a private meeting.
Councillor Clark, Councillor Duncan is endeavouring to answer your question. Please let him do so.
Well, then, can you please stop referring to us not going to a private meeting where we couldn't then publish what came out of it?
Councillor Duncan, if you'd like to answer that question, if Councillor Clark would allow you to do so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am endeavouring to answer the question, and I do have to say it is rude of Councillor Clark to talk over me when I'm trying to answer to give him the answer.
But it's rude of you to keep saying that we didn't raise this question. This is our first opportunity to raise it in public.
Councillor Clark, please be quiet. Allow Councillor Duncan to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The decision to commission KPMG was taken jointly by the 7 district and borough authorities. Up to £25,000 was allocated by each authority to cover the costs of this research and preparation of a case for change. The decision was taken to ensure that members of all 7 authorities were fully appraised of the various options and able to respond if and when an invitation for proposals was received from the government. In the case of Ryedale District Council, the decision to spend up to £25,000 was made by the Chief Executive. Although within delegated spending limits, a formal decision notice was prepared. Given the absence of formal meetings, this followed advice issued by the monitoring officer. A copy of this decision notice has been sent to all members via email. No spend was committed before the tendering took place.
Thank you. I think that answered the question in full. Question 10, please.
How did we know we'd need 25,000 then? Or is that just a number that came back to us? And if that is a number that came back to us, what is needed is 25,000. Is the rumour that KPMG cost 150,000? 150 times 7 is 175,000. What's happened to the other 25?
That's a separate question. A supplementary. We'll take it as supplementary.
It's a supplementary to his answer.
It is. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your supplementary question. The Chief Executive allocated up to £25,000 to cover the preparation of a business case and an options appraisal by KPMG. It was a figure of up to £25,000. My understanding, and I will be able to get clarity on this for you, is that the KPMG report did not cost £25,000, but the figure and decision was taken by the Chief Executive to allocate up to £25,000 if it was needed.
Councillor Clark.
So what happened to the extra? Did we put in 25,000 or some other number?
I think I've made very clear and answered the question, Mr. Chairman. The Chief Executive made the decision to commit up to £25,000 to the preparation of a business case and options appraisal.
It's a simple question. How much did we put into the KPMG bid?
I will be able to get clarity for you on that, Councillor Clark, but the decision was taken by the Chief Executive to allocate up to £25,000.
I understood that. That was perfectly clear.
If £25,000 isn't spent, then it's unspent. It will be an amount lower than
how much was spent?
I will be able to get clarity on that and provide it to you, Councillor Clark.
In a written reply in the minutes, please.
I'm happy to provide a written answer.
Thank you. And the minutes and the answer to that specific question will be circulated to all members of the council, please. And I think that does lead us on to question 10.
Thank you, Chair. Could we please have copies of the minutes of the North Yorkshire leaders' meetings from July to date?
Thank you, Councillor Wass, for your question. Minutes of the informal meetings of local government York and North Yorkshire held on July the 9th, August the 27th and October the 9th, and minutes of a North Yorkshire Chief Executive's meeting held on September the 11th have been sent to all members via email. Thank you. If you do have a supplementary, now's your chance. Councillor Wass.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I just get the feeling that we've put these questions forward and it's taken these questions to go to you in order to get a reaction. And I know, we weren't there, bless us, in July, but there's been a lot happened since July. You've mentioned this evening meetings in August, meetings in October, and yet it's come down to literally, I presume, today to get these emails. And I'm sure, other councillors as well as the Liberals have benefited from the questions that we've asked. And surely shouldn't it be up to you as leader to produce in a professional and transparent way what these meetings have entailed and why we need to be informed rather than us asking?
Thank you, Councillor Wass. I think it's also worth informing you that there wasn't just a briefing held in July, but there were subsequent briefings which the Liberal group also failed to attend. There was also several email briefings that have been circulated to all members, not only by the Chief Executive, but by myself as leader. I've endeavoured to share as much information as I possibly can with my fellow members, and I think that I have done a good job of doing that. I am happy to collate all of that information that's been sent over the past 6 months or so, from the start of the first lockdown situation to the resumption of the meetings and beyond. I'm happy to provide that information to you so that you can see exactly the scale of information that has been shared with members at key junctures on this journey towards the meeting happening on Thursday, with a decision whether to submit or not the business case.
Thank you. And now question 11, please. Question 11.
Please list the public health benefits of breaking up the current public health arrangements for Ryedale.
Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. Question 3, which you asked me earlier, was how does the breaking up of NYCC Public Health Department help in the current campaign against COVID-19? I feel that I have adequately answered the question that you asked then, and I do believe that this question is in effect a duplicate of that question. My answer to question 3 stands, and I believe that I've answered that thoroughly and adequately.
Councillor Clark, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Chair. Does it ever occur to the leader that the public out there ask basically the following question in relation to this and previous ones? Why is the leader of council giving the general public his views rather than those of the council?
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question, which I'll be honest with you, I'm struggling to understand. You've come to full council and called an extraordinary meeting to ask me a series of questions. Myself, as a leader of the council, I'm endeavouring to answer those questions to the best of my ability. Some of the answers to the questions within the KPMG report, which you've had time to read and that's publicly available, some of the questions that you've asked do relate to my own opinions. And I am allowed, Councillor Clark, and I hope all members support me in this, I am allowed to have opinions like every other member of the council is entitled to have opinions and to express them at full council meetings. And you've asked me the questions and I've done my best to answer them as thoroughly and as comprehensively as I can.
I wonder, Chair, whether it might be an idea if the leader checked back on how many times he spoke on behalf of the council without council having had chance, with the whole of this lot that we've looked at tonight, seeing it out in the public domain, rather than it being, I'll get you that answer later, and it's in those minutes you got this afternoon. I really do feel that it is not good enough, particularly in a council that has got a minority people who question his leadership, a minority of 15 of us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Can I make a point of personal response, please, Chair?
Councillor Potter, was that you wanting to speak?
Yes, please, Chair.
And that's a supplementary to question 11.
No, this is a point of personal response. I've now heard Councillor Duncan on several occasions talk about none of the Liberals being in attendance at some of these little fireside chats or members' briefings that he's referred to. I think he should be well aware that I was there at least one of the those briefings, and possibly a couple. And I have heard none of these questions answered at any of those briefings. I have heard no hard evidence. All I've ever heard was an outline of the situation, how it was developing. So it's not true at all that none of the Liberals were there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you we take your observation that you attended the briefings. I think as an observation, Councillor Potter, it would be better not to denigrate members' briefings as fireside chats. They are formal insofar as they're there for our benefit. Patently, if you were there and there were questions that weren't answered, you could have raised them at that time. I do take your point, though, that you were present in some of these briefings.
Yeah, but none of that information was available for the public.
That is the end of the questions that on requisition. Apparently, there are a lot of questions that there are some questions that have not been answered, or the answers have not yet. We haven't had a chance to study them in depth. We have a chance now to do that between now and Thursday. Can I thank you all for your attendance this evening, and I look forward to seeing you, being seen in whatever way on Thursday evening. I gather from information received today that, in fact, it will be an entirely virtual meeting again on Thursday evening, the extraordinary meeting on the 5th. So I thank you all for your attendance this evening. And for those of you who aren't home, go home safely. The rest of us are already at home. We're going to end the meeting there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, very much.